scheduled sex is sexy, the anticipation
Say it.
that comes from that will actually make for a phenomenal experience for you. But plan a date, and you both know this is the intent.
Woohoo!
We're going to skip the Netflix. We're going to go to the chill part that is going to be hot and sweaty.
Oh my goodness.
You may be one choice away from a thriving marriage. Welcome to the Operation Thriving Marriage podcast with Brian and Jennifer Harvey.
All right, welcome back to the Operation Thriving Marriage podcast. Brian and Jennifer Harvey here. And we're really glad and we really enjoy it when we get some different questions that are coming in. And, sometimes we're sending, messages back to folks who are asking us questions. Sometimes we're putting them on our podcast, but always like to answer questions, whether it's a Q&A at a live event or, hearing from you guys in some other ways. So thank you for that. And, we've had some questions roll in, and we have some that have really caught our attention this time around. Brian, I don't know if you wanted to add to how some of these go or what happens, or just kind of jump into some of these questions.
Well,
here.
first of all, keep the questions coming. You can put it on the podcast review. You can put it there. You can go to operationthrivingmarriage.com and you can send us questions there. You can find us on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on X, Twitter, whatever. You can find me, Brian Harvey, on Instagram, and you can
I'm there too.
Or you can find us both on Instagram. So find us on social media, or just go to operationthrivingmarriage.com, and we would love to hear your questions. But this one is from Megen.
Okay.
And one of the things we like about this one is this is kind of Operation Thriving Marriage Unplugged, because we just talk about the question. I didn't do any research on this. We don't have an outline. We don't have content development like I usually do. We
Living on the edge.
answer the questions. So this is from Megen. She
Okay,
says,
girl, what's going on, Megen?
how to spice things up in a marriage without cheating.
Oh, well, Megen, I think that you're on the right track, because don't cheat, right? It's like that was just a little surprising to me, and excuse me for like being an extrovert and kind of going on here, but it's just like, no, you don't cheat in your marriage. So I don't understand why you think that you'd be spicing things up, or things would be better, having an affair with somebody else.
I think this honestly goes back to the forbidden love myth, and we talked about that in the book, and we've talked about that in other places as well. There's this myth that exists since romance novels first started being written, that the forbidden love is more pure or better. And look at TV shows all the time. You've got two people who are together, but their true love is actually someone else. We just watched, when we were in New York, we watched the Broadway version of The Great Gatsby.
Oh, sure.
And
great show. Go see it, by the way, guys.
And our daughter would be very proud of you for mentioning that. But part of that is the relationship between Daisy and Gatsby, you're supposed to believe is the right one.
Right,
And
that
Daisy,
first pure true love between Jay Gatsby and...
Yeah, not necessarily the first, but the one that is you can't have. It's that forbidden one. And
because if you know the story, whether you read the book, the Leo movie, now the Jeremy Jordan and Eva Nobelzon. I think that's how her last name is
Eva,
pronounced.
we don't know how to pronounce your name,
but we love you. I met her briefly after the show as a side note. So girl, you're doing great, and you've got awards coming your way. But it's something where Jay Gatsby and Daisy had this lovely romance. He goes off to fight in the war, and they had a disconnect. And, just to kind of depending on the version that you're looking at, book, movie, musical, different reasons for that. But she ends up marrying somebody else. And her marriage then is preventing her from being with Jay, which she should have been with, quote unquote, from jump. And you see these things too. It's like Romeo and Juliet. You see this in North and South. You might remember that. They made a miniseries on that with Patrick Swayze in the 80s.
Yeah, the myth exists. And also there's the excitement of the danger.
Mm-hmm. The danger of getting caught.
Right.
Or the quote-unquote sexiness of, oh, this shouldn't be happening, but it is.
Right. And so that danger is like, because you shouldn't be doing it.
And how many times, let's be honest, when we're watching TV show, musical, movie, how many times are people rooting for the illicit relationship from happening just because the authors manipulate you to?
Yeah, so Megan, that's a myth that media is telling you that cheating is going to make things better. It's going to spice things up. It's going to ruin your life.
Heck yes, it is.
It's going to ruin your life, and it's going to ruin your life every time. I'm sorry, you don't have highly trained creative writers writing the perfect script for you personally. You're writing your own script, but so is everyone else. Everyone else is writing their own script, and you can't write the lines for anyone else. You're right, though, in that if you're feeling a certain way about sex, and I'm presuming it's sex by the way you asked the question, in your marriage, one of the things that is very interesting to me, there's this belief, and it's in tropes and memes and stuff, that, oh, all men want is sex, and just give them sex and they'll be happy in marriage. Yet we get more questions and more responses, and there's more books out there written about it, that it's the women who are unhappy.
So true.
And so we're talking about this, and our children just walked into the studio. I don't know if they want to stay in here and listen to this one since we're talking about sex, but they're welcome to.
That's right. It doesn't bother us because this is going to be up on the internet at some point in time, so they might be dealing with this. And our 12, almost 13-year-old is adamantly shaking his head, no way.
No, don't want to talk.
And
So
they're leaving.
Todd will edit that part out probably, but maybe not. But so, Megan, you're being told a myth that it's going to be better. But going back to where we were, this idea that, well, it's just men want sex, men want sex, men want sex. But women are the ones often in marriage unhappy with sex.
Yeah, we get messages from the ladies all the time about this kind of a thing. And, we appreciate you trusting us with these questions, but you got to be talking to your husband about this.
And so that's the first step. If you're not used to talking about sex, and you're not used to being honest about, hey, this isn't working well for me, then it is an awkward and uncomfortable conversation. And men listening, when your wife is approaching you about this is not an emasculating conversation. I know it feels that way. Because another thing in our culture is, if you can't please a woman, you are somehow less masculine. We get that again in media, starting in junior high, when people start talking about experiences that they've never had, but they're going to convince you. It can feel very emasculating. It can feel like your wife is telling you you are less manly because you're not pleasing her the way that she is looking for. That's not what she's doing. She's looking to connect with you. She loves you, and she wants a stronger, better, fuller connection with you. And so, women, you need to be able to talk to your men, your husbands, about, hey, I need to talk to you because this isn't going well right now. And men, you need to be willing to listen to your wives and not take it personally, not say you are less manly, but just be honest about, hey, I want to love my wife better in this way. What do we need to do? And it starts with a simple conversation about, hey, this is, it's a trope, but it's real. The first step to solving a problem is admitting there is a problem.
And that's just so key. And I will say that anyone who, whether it's the husband or the wife, approaching the other, that person is being very vulnerable, and that person is not looking to go outside of the marriage, because that spouse could have done that. Instead, they're saying, I want things to be better for us.
Right.
And I think that it's important to appreciate that piece of it as well. But also some of the ideas of, how are things going to get spiced up? Well, we routinely will say, you are the curator of your marriage and the designer of your marriage and your sex life together. So that's something that you need to be having that conversation about what's going to be more spicy for each spouse there. But I think that, Brian, we can give some kind of practical hacks, if you
Yeah.
will, in some of this. And some things that I've been reading through is sometimes for people, it draws you closer together if you have some different kinds of experience together, just kind of playing with some rushes and dopamine and things like that. Like if you see a scary movie together,
Right.
that might be something. Or if you go on an experience together, like skydiving, a lot of times, even if it's just experiencing different things together, like new experiences together, can do some of that for you as well. And then that can translate, over to being spicy in other areas of marriage, right?
So another thing I think of is, okay, what's causing it to be less spicy? And sometimes, okay, guys, sometimes the reality is as we get older, our bodies don't respond like they did when we were 18 sexually.
Which is good and less embarrassing, I think.
Well, there is that aspect of it. You don't have to hold things over your crotch when you're walking down the street. But sometimes there can be a medical thing going on. Do not be afraid if the problem is the experience isn't lasting long enough, or the experience isn't getting started because you have a medical problem with erections, then it's okay to talk to a doctor. And my gosh, Facebook, I mean, that I see so many things just because it says I'm male in my Facebook thing about drugs for erectile dysfunction.
You're going to start getting those if you're on social media, you're going to start getting those advertisements if you check that you're a dude, like when you're a teenager.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
So if that's something going on, talk to the doctor, get the medication. It's going to make your sex life better for you and your wife. And so don't be afraid of that.
And I think that's pretty typical too. If you go to the doctor and you have a good doctor, like you're going in for your annual physical, that's typically what they're going to be asking you, male or female. It's like I've been asked directly by my doctor, are you having any sexual dysfunction? And even if it's embarrassing to you, I mean, these doctors have seen and heard everything. So if you feel like you're having a problem, male or female, please say so to your doctor because they can help you out.
And another thing is it's okay to experiment with different positions. Do different things, particularly, I mean, as you get older, your body changes. Like, okay, try different positions. Be creative, come up with, and just be honest. Hey, I want to try this. I'm interested in trying this. Just going to be blunt here because
oh dear.
The Bible encourages things other than just one position. You read the Song of Solomon, it talks very blatantly about oral sex. There's other
on the
things.
bottom shelf, my friends.
So be open to talking about that and having those conversations about, hey, I want to try this. I want to do that. And be open to, okay, I want to do things for you, for my spouse, that are going to make this a better experience.
And also, of course, any decisions that you're making, you need to make together. Nobody's dictating things one way or the other. So these are things that you need to come to as a couple, mm-hmm. so that there's mutuality in these decisions. Because if a spouse feels like it's somehow degrading or they don't want to do that, move on to another option.
Absolutely. Yeah, never force your spouse in any way. But other things, I mean, there are many games out there, board games, that are intended to be in the bedroom, where it's going to make sure that when you're looking at them, it's not something that's encouraging pornography, because that is going to be the opposite of spicing up your marriage. It's going to wreck your sex life if you start trying to bring pornography into the bedroom. It's not going to work. It's the opposite.
Yeah, we've been to one or two or three marriage conferences where some door prizes were like these cards or whatever, and the church picked it out. There you go. So there's some things out there that are I suppose in keeping with the idea of creativity and trying things, but not being in a way that would not be God honoring.
Absolutely. But I mean, and it's asking things like, okay, what do you like? Those types of things. It's okay to role play. It's okay as long as you're not trying to role play something that's ungodly, but costumes and things like that. If that's something that's sexy lingerie, guys. By the way, if you want her wearing sexy underwear, don't be walking out there in boxers with holes in them. I mean, it goes both ways. And Jen's just not going to respond to that. She's just going to blush and roll her eyes at me.
And no, those are not holy underpants. It's like those are underpants that have holes in them. So don't do that. But the other, I guess, question that I would almost want to ask Megen is, what age is Megen? Because I really think that we women need to guard our hearts kind of rolling into middle age, because I have just seen in my law practice there are a lot of women that are just deciding in middle age, I've had it, I'm totally done, and I want to move on to other sexual experimentation with other men. I'm just done with my husband for whatever reason. And obviously we've seen men do that with women, but I've just really seen that as more of a I've seen that just as more of a pattern, if you will, with a lot of different women. So I think it's just very important for you to continue to build your relationship with your spouse and not take any bait of the enemy to look outside of your marriage or step outside of your marriage for any reason. You chose your spouse chose you. Marriage is intended to be that lifetime commitment, and dealing with and experiencing different things together as a couple for the rest of your lives. And I would just encourage you, if you're saying, goodness, am I in this kind of middle age area? Am I getting into maybe some sort of a funk or different perceptions of things, but I've got to get myself back on track in having that understanding of what marriage is. And please feel free to, reread more of that purpose of marriage that's in our book.
The last piece of advice for Megen that I would give would be plan a sex date. Plan a date. Maybe you're getting a hotel room, maybe something like that, where you're leading up to this. It's scheduled, and scheduled sex is sexy. The
Say it.
that comes from that will actually make for a phenomenal experience for you. But plan a date, and you both know this is the intent.
Woohoo!
This is not, oh, maybe it's going to be Netflix and chill. No, we're going to skip the Netflix. We're going to go to the chill part that is going to be hot and sweaty.
Oh my goodness.
Having a thriving sex life is important to having a thriving marriage. Megen and anyone else listening who has experienced, hey, this is not the sex life that I want right now. We hear that often. You're not alone. It's important, and hopefully these few tips will give you some ideas. There's some really good books out there as well that are written by therapists and Christian counselors and that can give you advice. I want to be careful because in the secular world, they will encourage things that are unhealthy, such as bringing pornography and stuff into the bedroom.
Don't go there.
Don't go there, but look for ways to experiment together. Be honest about what you like. Be honest about what you don't like, and have fun and work together to build that thriving sex life that God wants you to have. God created sex in part for your pleasure, to draw you closer together. Use that to build your thriving marriage.
Absolutely. And Megen and all of our other friends who are listening here, we're cheering you on in this aspect of your marriage. We want that to be healthy for you, and God wants that to be healthy for you too. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Operation Thriving Marriage, the podcast, and please do rate and subscribe. Can't wait to hear from you next time.
And send in more questions.
Jen and I started Operation Thriving Marriage to help couples and churches take marriages from merely surviving to thriving. We've got our book, we've got a blog, and resources for our coaching ministry, and you can bring us out for an Operation Thriving Marriage experience. For more information, go to OperationThrivingMarriage.com. That's OperationThrivingMarriage.com.